Hey everyone, this is Goenka from Udit.co, and you're listening to Modern Revenue, the podcast where I talk about the future of SaaS sales. This podcast is brought to you by FirstSales.io, a modern email outreach and warm-up tool to help you fill your sales pipeline by up to 7x faster. PitchGround, my SaaS marketplace, and TinyCheck, my SaaS venture studio. In today's action-packed episode, we're diving into the challenger mindset. We'll uncover why the old sales playbooks aren't cutting it and how to disrupt the status quo to close bigger deals faster. The problem: buyers stuck in complacency. Okay, let's talk about the elephant in the sales room. Buyers who are happily stuck in their mediocre ways. You know the type. Their business is chugging along, not amazing, but hey, it pays the bills. Thing is, that comfy complacency is costing them a fortune in missed opportunities, but they're too busy being busy to realize it. It's not just laziness, folks. This is serious stuff. A mix of fear of change. Hey, what if it breaks everything? Decision overload in this crazy SaaS market, and a sprinkle of that if it ain't broke mentality. The result? Your amazing solution that could transform their business is met with a lukewarm meh. Picture this. You're rocking the perfect product demo, packed with ROI goodness, but they're more focused on the price tag than the potential game changer you're offering. Or they take forever to make the call because, well, we've always done it this way. That's complacency with a capital C, my friend. Don't get me wrong, there are different shades of this. Some buyers know they should upgrade but get buried in red tape. Others are straight up blind to how disruptive your tech could be. The key is figuring out where they are on the complacency spectrum. But hey, this isn't a doom and gloom lecture. Complacency is your opportunity in disguise. We'll talk about how to diagnose these complacent customers and the sneaky smart questions that will shake them out of their snooze-fest. Because let's be real, sometimes the biggest obstacle isn't a competitor, it's getting the buyer to see they need to change in the first place. Now let's crack open the psychology behind those complacent buyers and arm you with tactics sharper than a scalpel, because changing someone's mind ain't easy. But oh boy, is it satisfying. Now imagine this. Your buyer's brain is like a cozy house they've lived in forever. Sure, the plumbing's a bit leaky, the paint's peeling, but hey, it's theirs. You're rocking up with blueprints for a shiny penthouse, but they're clinging to that cozy yet crumbling house. Here's why: loss aversion. Our brains hate loss more than they love gain. Changing up the system feels risky, even if you promise them the world. That's the lizard brain talking, not logic. Cognitive bias. Extravaganza buyers cling to what they know. There's the status quo bias where change feels unnatural. Then there's the sunk cost fallacy. They don't want to think those years with a crummy solution were a waste.
Mental shortcuts. Analyzing your solution takes effort. Their brains are screaming, ain't nobody got time for that. They'd rather stick with the good enough devil they know. So, how do we stage a mental intervention? Here's the deal. Jolt them out of autopilot. Don't pitch features. Ask a jarring question. What's one metric that's keeping you up at night? Or imagine your biggest competitor just did X. How would you respond? Force them to confront what they're avoiding.
Paint the cost of staying the same. Don't just say more sales, quantify it. Your current churn rate is bleeding X per month. Let's fix that. Nothing breaks complacency like seeing lost cash. Social proof is your BFF. Don't be salesy, be the expert guide. Case studies of similar companies killing it thanks to your solution, that'll get their attention more than your product sheet. Champion hunting. Find that one person in the company who sees the big picture. They're your ally to combat that internal inertia. Remember, complacency is a sneaky bugger. Sometimes the biggest battle is getting a buyer to admit they should be looking for something better. Keep it punchy, focus on the pain that they might not even fully feel yet, and become the trusted guide, not the pushy salesperson. The old playbook versus the challenger. Let's put those old school sales playbooks under the microscope and see why they're gathering dust in the face of modern buyers. Think of it as the classic car salesman versus the disruptor. The old guard. Remember those sales reps who dropped by your office with a suitcase full of glossy brochures and a smile wider than Texas? They'd ramble on about features, benefits, yada yada. You could practically hear the crickets chirping in the background. The focus was on the product, not the buyer's problems. It was like shouting, "Look at this shiny hammer." Doesn't matter if you're building a house or a bird feeder, buy the hammer. The challenger. Now, imagine this. Instead of a pitch, you get hit with a question that makes you sit up straighter. Something like, "What's your biggest bottleneck when it comes to key pain point?" Suddenly, they're not selling, they're diagnosing. They're forcing you to confront your weaknesses, making that comfy status quo feel a lot less inviting. The challenger knows that today's buyers are drowning in information and crave a guide, not another smooth talking vendor. They bring insights to the table, not just features. Think industry trends, competitor moves, stuff that gets those gears turning in the buyer's head. They challenge your thinking and paint a picture of what's possible if you get off the complacency train. The difference is night and day. The old playbook is all about pushing a product. The challenger playbook is about creating that aha moment for the buyer where they realize change isn't just nice, it's absolutely necessary for survival, let alone growth. Story time. I was once consulting for a scrappy appointment setting agency. Solid results with small businesses, but they were stuck in a rut, churning out the same predictable outreach. Clients were happy-ish, but renewals were getting shaky. Their main objection wasn't even the price, it was our process works, why rock the boat? The complacency was twofold. Internally, they were stuck with their old tried and true templates, and there was also a disconnect with understanding how their clients' markets were evolving. The turning point was two-pronged. First, I showed them how AI-powered writing tools were blowing up, making generic outreach look robotic in comparison. Then we dug into one of their clients' industries. Turns out, their whole target audience was shifting their communication preferences. This is where I introduced firstsales.io, HTTP firstsales.io key, not as a magic bullet, but as a way to evolve their approach. Warm-up sequences? That meant better deliverability and a more human touch. Personalization at scale? That meant staying competitive, not just churning out copy-paste emails. The mindset shift was crucial. Instead of clinging to their safe but increasingly stale methods, they started seeing firstsales.io, HTTP, firstsales.io as a way to future-proof their services for their clients. Outreach became about quality, not volume. And that resonated with their clients, leading to stickier contracts. The lesson here: complacency can be contagious. By breaking the agency out of their comfort zone, their whole value proposition got revitalized. Sometimes the best sales tactic is to help your clients see the potential their own customers are demanding. Challenge the norm. Asking the right questions. In traditional sales, we're taught to ask open-ended questions to uncover needs. While valid, these often fall short with complacent buyers. Why? Assumptions. Questions like, "What are your pain points?" assume the buyer is fully aware of those pain points and that they see them as urgent problems to address. Leading the witness. Sometimes, our helpful questions simply reinforce the status quo. Asking "how do you handle X" implies there should be a process in place, validating how they currently do things. Surface level responses. Complacent buyers might answer truthfully but without depth. Our lead flow is okay tells you nothing about the untapped potential they're overlooking. The power of provocative inquiry. The challenger mindset isn't about interrogating prospects but skillfully introducing discomfort to create a productive sense of unease. Here's the framework. 1. Expose blind spots. Instead of "what metrics do you track?" try, "if you could wave a magic wand, what's one metric you wish you could improve by 20% overnight?" This forces them to confront the gap between their current reality and their aspirations. 2. Quantify the cost of inaction. Don't accept vague answers. A complacent lead says competitors are a concern. Counter with, "how much market share have you lost to competitor X in the last year? What's the projected loss if this trend continues?" 3. Challenge industry norms. This requires deep research on your end. Find trends or disruptors in their space. Instead of "are you using AI tools?" try, "I see companies like X are leveraging AI for use case. Have you explored that for your team yet?" 4. Personalize the pain. Generic questions get generic answers. Dig into their role. Ask a sales leader, "what's that one deal you always wish you'd closed that haunts you a bit?" A CMO, What campaign were you most excited about that fell flat, and why do you think that was? Caveats and considerations. These aren't gotcha questions to be rude. Tone matters. It's about genuine curiosity delivered with confidence. Here's where additional research comes in handy. Reading between the lines. Their answers and their hesitations are valuable. A long pause before answering might signal a pain point they're reluctant to admit. Earning the right. Build rapport first. These questions hit harder if they trust your expertise from the get go. Let's break down some of these psychological responses. 1. Cognitive dissonance, the power of contradiction. Cognitive dissonance is that uncomfortable feeling when our beliefs and actions don't align. A complacent buyer might say everything's fine, while deep down there's a nagging sense things could be better. Your disruptive questions force them to confront this discrepancy. Example. Asking about that one metric they wish they could magically improve highlights the gap between their ambition and their reality. This dissonance motivates change. 1. Loss aversion turned on its head. We're wired to avoid loss more strongly than we would seek gain. Complacent buyers cling to the status quo to avoid the perceived risk of change. Clever questioning flips this. Example. Quantifying the cost of inaction, lost market share, missed revenue, makes staying the same feel like the riskier option. It's no longer about the potential gains of your solution, but the undeniable losses of doing nothing. 1. Challenging their self-narrative. Complacency often masks insecurity. Buyers might cling to outdated methods because admitting they're suboptimal questions their competence. By asking about those haunting missed deals or failed campaigns, you're subtly challenging their decision-making ability. Important note, this is delicate territory. Tone is crucial. It's about making them question their past choices to be open to new solutions, not undermining their confidence entirely. 1. Sparking the what if curiosity. Complacent buyers are stuck in a mental loop of what they know. By introducing industry disruptors or unexpected use cases, you plant the seed of possibility. It's a subtle shift but powerful. Example, the AI question isn't about pressuring them to buy AI tools. It's about jolting them out of the assumption that they're already doing things the right way. Curiosity is the enemy of complacency. Additional considerations. Know your audience. Some personalities are more resistant to this approach. Tailor your intensity accordingly. It's a dance, not a war. There's a fine line between productive discomfort and defensiveness. Watch the reactions carefully and calibrate. Now let's talk about how to tailor these disruptive questions to resonate with different buyer personas and personality types. It's essential to remember the goal isn't to steamroll prospects, but to skillfully tailor your approach to get them thinking differently. Buyer persona considerations. 1. The old guard traditionalist. This buyer values experience and proven methods. Focus on highlighting the risks of falling behind using industry benchmarks and case studies. Instead of, are you open to exploring AI for lead generation? Try. Companies like similar established competitor have seen significant efficiency gains with AI-assisted lead scoring. Is that something you've considered to stay competitive? 2. The data-driven decision maker. They want hard evidence, not fluff. Questions that quantify the cost of inaction hit home. Instead of, what keeps you up at night? Too vague. Try, if you could eliminate specific pain point, what would that translate to in terms of increased revenue or reduced churn within the next quarter? 3. The visionary leader. These buyers are drawn to innovation and possibility, spark their competitive spirit, and highlight the potential for them to be a disruptor within their industry. Instead of, how is your team handling X, assumes they have a process. Try, I'm seeing a trend in your space towards emerging tech or strategy. Where do you see your company positioned within that trend in the next year? Personality nuances. The skeptic. Back up your questions with a bit of data. Have a relevant stat ready demonstrating the potential impact for businesses like this. The ego-driven. Frame your questions as helping them unlock their untapped potential. Appeal to their desire to outsmart the competition. The time-pressed. Be laser-focused. Choose one powerful question to ask, then build upon their response. Respect their time constraints. Important note. Even with tailoring, some prospects will remain stubbornly in the comfort zone. Know when to gracefully pivot towards nurturing the relationship instead of forcing the issue. Let's practice and take an example. A CRO of a SaaS company is a fantastic persona to tackle. They're focused on metrics, growth, and a healthy dose of healthy competitive spirit. Let's turn up the heat with the questions. Generic question: what are your biggest challenges with lead generation? Crow-tailored variations. 1. Quantifying the bottleneck. You've got ambitious growth targets for this year. What's the one conversion point in your funnel that, if we could improve by just 5%, would have the biggest impact on hitting those targets? 2. Future forward thinking. We're seeing a trend with scaling SaaS companies moving towards emerging lead gen tactic, be specific. Are you actively experimenting in that space, or is that something on your radar for this year? 3. Tying it to ambition. I imagine cracking key revenue metric is your holy grail right now. What's the gap you need to close this quarter to get there, and where do you see the biggest opportunity for improvement? Explanation. These questions force them to confront specific numbers, not vague complaints. They hint at the potential of what they might be missing without being salesy. There's an implied challenge. The CRO should have these answers readily available. Your turn. Let's try another generic question. How do you measure the success of your sales team? Remember, folks, complacency is the silent killer of growth. The best deals aren't won with tired product pitches, but by sparking those aha moments for your buyers. Don't be afraid to ask the questions that make them a little uncomfortable. That's when the real opportunities emerge. Now, your challenge for this week: take 2 classic sales questions, the kind you ask on autopilot, and rework them. Make them provocative, insights-driven, designed to crack the shell of that complacency. You might be surprised at how a simple change in phrasing can lead to game-changing conversations. If you try this out, I want to hear about it. Share your reworked questions, the results. Let's keep this conversation going on social media or your preferred channel. And remember, in the world of sales, challenging the norm isn't just an option, it's your key to unlocking the next level. Until next time, keep asking the tough questions and keep on closing. Intent-driven selling. Beyond buzzwords, defining insight. In the sales context, insight is often overused and underdelivered. True insights possess these qualities. Relevance. Directly linked to the buyer's pain points, goals, and decision-making criteria. Generic stats don't qualify. Novelty. Reveals something the buyer is likely unaware of. A market shift, competitive vulnerability, or an untapped opportunity within their own data. Actionable. Not just interesting, but sparks a clear question of what should we do differently because of this. Insight-driven selling as paradigm shift. This isn't simply doing your homework, it represents a fundamental change in the seller's role. From solution provider to strategic consultant. You're not just pitching your product, you're offering tailored business advice backed by data. This builds immense trust. Reactive to proactive. You're not waiting for them to define the problem. You're diagnosing issues and prescribing actions they might not have considered. Focus on value, not features. Insights demonstrate the transformative impact your solution will have, making the price an investment, not an expense. Sources of insight are industry-specific research, trade publications, analyst reports, niche blogs, digging deeper than your prospect has time. Competitor intelligence, earnings reports, product updates, and customer reviews can reveal gaps they're trying to fill or weaknesses you can exploit. The buyer's own data. With permission, analyzing their website traffic, CRM patterns, etc. can highlight inefficiencies your solution addresses. Social listening. Monitoring relevant hashtags or groups gives you a pulse on real-time pain points the customers are vocal about. The power of questions plus insights. Insight-driven selling is a 2-part play. First, you disrupt complacency with the questions we've discussed. Then, you follow up with insights that make the solution feel not just logical, but inevitable. Example: disruptive question. If you could reduce churn by just 5% this quarter, what would that mean for your bottom line? Follow-up insight. I've noticed companies like yours struggle with X churn factor. With your solution, we've consistently seen reductions of 10 to 15%. Include a mini case study if possible. Caveats and considerations. Permission based. Be transparent about your research. I noticed X about your competitor. Do you mind if we discuss that? Is better than seeming like a stalker. Quality over quantity. A single laser-focused insight beats a barrage of generic data points. Build this skill over time. Start by incorporating one insight per client call. The more you research, the sharper your instincts will become. Let's talk about the art of integrating insights so they amplify your message, not derail it. Here's a breakdown of techniques and considerations. 1. Timing is everything. Don't lead with insight work. Build rapport first. Insights hit hardest when they trust you as an expert, not just someone trying to impress. The aha moment. After asking a disruptive question, let them ponder. That's when you offer the insight that reframes the problem they just articulated. Insight as objection buster. Did they bring up a concern? Instead of arguing, offer an insight that subtly shifts their perspective. Price is a concern? I completely understand. Did you know that companies like yours often see ROI within X time frame due to insight about increased efficiencies/revenue? 2. Storytelling with data. Mini case studies. A similarly sized company in your space was struggling with pain point. By implementing solution, they saw a measurable result. Could something like that work here? Visuals, if possible. A simple chart highlighting an industry trend is more powerful than just verbally stating a stat. Infographics work great in follow-up emails as well. The "did you know" hook piqued the curiosity before dropping the insight bomb. Did you know that surprising stat about their industry? That's an area where we're seeing a lot of potential for companies like yours. 3. The language of confidence. Avoid by, I think. Insights shouldn't feel like speculation. Frame it as what we've seen across the industry is now, or here's a trend worth considering. Connect the dots for them. Don't just drop the insight and leave. Explicitly tie it back to their pain point or the question they answered. Invite collaboration. I'm curious, does this resonate with what you're seeing? Would it make sense to explore this further? Important notes. Rehearse. Practice weaving in insights to your standard pitch until it feels natural. Awkward delivery undermines the impact. Stay agile. Be prepared to pivot. If an insight falls flat, don't force it. Shift back to questions to uncover what will resonate. Let's practice. Pick a common pain point your prospects face. Do some quick research and find one powerful insight related to that pain point. Stat, case study, trend, your choice. Now, craft 2-3 sentences demonstrating how you'd weave this into a conversation naturally. Ready to give it a shot? Your insights challenge. Remember, knowledge is useless if it doesn't lead to action. Here's your mission for the week ahead. 1. Zero in on one pain point. Choose a common pain point your ideal clients struggle with. 2. Become the expert. Spend a focused hour researching this pain point. Find stats, competitor insights, or case studies that illuminate the problem in a new way. 3. Practice your delivery. How will you weave this newfound insight into your conversations? Practice out loud until it feels natural, not forced. Bonus, the power of why. When a prospect shares a problem, don't just accept it at face value. Ask why a few times to get to the root cause. This is where the most potent insights will emerge. Example, prospect. Our lead conversion is terrible. You, got it. Why do you think leads aren't converting?
Prospect, response time is slow, we're understaffed. You, interesting. Why do you think you're understaffed for lead follow-up? And so on, yeah. You might uncover that the qualification process is flawed, leading to wasted time on unqualified leads.
Share your wins. Tried this out? I'd love to hear about it. Hit me up on LinkedIn or send me an email at contact@udit.co. Let's build a community of sellers who are always challenging ourselves to get smarter and sharper.